everybody. Again, thank you so much for attending today. I'm Hunter. As you all know, we all know each other, so again, I appreciate you all coming out. Today, I'm just going to be talking about whole interval recording, doing a little behavior skills training on it. I'm going to take this off if y'all don't mind. But again, thank you so much by being here today. You're bettering yourself as a technician or BCBA, whatever you are, just by learning about our whole interval recording here. I don't know if anybody's used it or not, but you're also helping me with my education, getting a grade on this. So thank you so much. So we will begin here. First, we're going to just talk about our agenda. First, we're going to kind of go over discontinuous and continuous measurement, what the difference between that is. Then I'm going to get into the meat of things, what whole interval recording is. After that, we're going to create our own data sheets on my tiny little piece of paper I brought for you guys. And then we're going to get into the modeling portion. I'm going to show you guys how I would do it, how we're supposed to do it, actually. And then you guys are going to get a chance, okay? After that, just going to kind of get into some important notes to carry with you as you leave today. So again, thank you so much for being here. Won't take long. We'll get started now. Okay, and keep a mental note too, I forgot to put in there, we do have a pop quiz in the middle of everything, so be on your toes. Specifically, look out for our pink highlighted material here, okay? So, beginning, discontinuous measurement. What is that? Does anybody really know what discontinuous measurement is? Nobody? Okay, no worries. So, discontinuous measurement is when let me recheck that statement. Continuous measurement is what we're kind of used to here at the clinic a lot with our little kiddos and whatnot. Discontinuous measurement, we're not using quite as much. So what we're doing is we're not measuring an entirety of a session, okay? We're just measuring a certain portion of it. We're gonna stop. So what this includes is momentary time sampling, whole interval, and partial interval recording. Does any of that sound familiar to anybody? Mm-hmm. Ian, all right, Rain, perfect. So continuous measurement is kind of the opposite. We're measuring something that is continuing. So throughout our whole session, we're measuring. This can include frequency, rate, duration, interresponse time, and latency, and that probably sounds really familiar to all of us. So, perfect. Okay, so keep in mind, this continuous measurement, we are not recording the whole thing, just certain intervals, all right? So now we're getting, like I said, getting into the meat of things here. Whole interval recording. So I kind of broke it down here, whole interval. Whole, what we have to focus on here is if the behavior is happening for the entire time, the whole interval, right? Interval is going to be a predetermined amount of time that's going to be set by your BCBA that you can kind of work with there. So again, the behavior has to be happening for the whole interval here, okay? So if it stops, I'll kind of get into it a little bit later, but if it stops anytime, we have to, not count that. If it doesn't happen at all, we're not counting that. So behavior has to happen one more time. All right. So a couple important notes here is that the behavior and the duration must be very clearly defined, all right? Just like everything we kind of do here. Behavior, you have to know what the behavior is, and of course the duration of our interval here, we have to know what that is, what to look for when we're measuring, all right? At the end of it, when we're looking for a percentage here, and the way to get that is your positives. So if the behavior was occurring for that, say it with me now, whole interval, yeah, the whole time, we're going to record that as a positive. Then we're going to divide that by the opportunities or the intervals that we were recording for, okay? And then of course multiplying 100 by 100 to get the percentage of intervals that we recorded a plus for, that the behavior was occurring for, all right? So some examples here. We could look at some behaviors that, and like I said, we're not necessarily, we can use it here, and I'll get more into that in a second, but usually when I'm using it, we're using it with, some more older kiddos or whatnot. So one example that I actually use with one of my kiddos is, are we typing for 10 minutes? And again, it has to be happening for the whole time. It doesn't have to be for 10 minutes though. The interval could be very short, such as coloring for 30 seconds. Is a kid coloring, kid coloring for 30 seconds continuously throughout the whole interval. And another one that may sound familiar, because I'll get into it in a second, hitting. It could also be other behaviors. So if we're recording something like a DRO, is a kid hitting or not for a whole minute? If they're exhibiting other behaviors for that whole minute, we can mark that plus because the kid is not hitting. So moving on, again, pay attention to the pink highlight here. Some specifications of whole interval recording. I want you to know it underestimates behavior, okay? So what I mean by that, again, the behavior has to be happening for the whole interval. So even if it's happening for 9.5 seconds out of the whole 10-second interval, we can't count that. So therefore, it underestimates the behavior as a whole, because the behavior is still happening, but we're not counting it, okay? So with that, keep that in mind. The shorter the intervals, the more accurate the data, okay? Because, if the interval is super long, there's probably gonna be a couple pauses in that behavior, okay? So keep in mind, whole interval recording underestimates behavior. All right, when do we utilize whole interval recording? So essentially for all discontinuous measurements, it's typically when a behavior is not easily measured. So you see this a lot in group settings. You see it when there's high rates of behavior, and you also see it when it's hard to measure the onset and the offset behavior. So these two kind of go hand in hand there. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we can use, I don't know if anybody's used a DRO. Has anybody used DRO? Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple times. So in that instance, we're measuring, okay, is the behavior occurring or not? If it's not, we're gonna give that reward, we're gonna give that token, whatever that is, all right? So that's when you typically would use whole interval recording.
I got a question for you. Oh, well, there we go.
Right on. Stop here for some questions, all right? What's your question?
I was just thinking about, you're talking about the whole interval, and you had the, as an example, not hitting for
Yes.
1 minute. What can you provide some examples or thoughts on what the advantage of recording not hitting for a minute would be over recording the frequency of hitting and then dividing that by the time to figure out a rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, typically you wouldn't want to measure, you wouldn't want to define a behavior by it not
absence,
happening. Yeah, the absence, absolutely. So with that, you like a DRO, you want to measure other behaviors. Again, as I kind of said earlier, we're going to be measuring, using whole interval recording when it's kind of hard to measure those behaviors. So a lot of times if there is high rates of behavior, it's just continuously happening. You can't really tell when the onset or the offset is, those are typically pretty hard to measure the frequency. Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you have a kid that's hitting 100+ times a session, that's tough. That's tough to get accurate data on. So whole interval recording, a little bit easier. It breaks it up, makes it easier for the technicians. Any more questions? I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Because I was curious, because usually, you have a behavior, and there's not doing this.
Yeah, and the thing about whole interval recording that I think I kind of skipped over here was it's not going to be 100% accurate. Well, frequency, we aim for 100% accuracy.
By the nature of...
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so any more questions before we move on?
No.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, quiz time, you ready? Okay, whole interval recording is a form of, if you guys want it, can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to answer it? You can raise your hand. There you go, Ian, what's the answer here?
C,
Yeah.
discontinuous.
Discontinuous measurement, okay, so again, we're breaking it up, we're not measuring the whole session here. Very good. Second quiz question, whole interval measures behavior, if whole interval measures if the behavior occurred
Full time?
during the whole interval. Yes, sorry, I had to
No,
look
you're
back
fine.
and
You
read
had to
that,
look
but
at it.
absolutely, yeah, I forgot my own quiz, oh my goodness. Perfect, okay, next one. So yeah, remember with that one, the behavior has to occur, say it with me one more time, for the whole interval, absolutely. Okay, next up, whole interval recording. A, underestimates behavior. So like I said earlier, it's not gonna be 100% accurate. We have to use it sometimes, you know? So perfect, great job, everyone. Okay, so moving forward, I figured, you know, we might as well create our own data sheets here, instead of me providing you with your own. This way we can kind of generalize out when we're using it, with our kiddos, all right? Sorry, I probably should have given you pencils.
Right.
Yeah, I don't make these mechanical ones.
Give you a whole bunch there. My bad.
So I'm taking,
All right, so I'm gonna be doing, I think it's a whole minute, so I'll do mine for a whole minute. But I want you to break yours up into squares of, you're doing 2 minutes with 10-second intervals, so that would be 10 squares. If you wouldn't mind breaking it down into 10 squares.
would that be 11? No, 12 then.
I think it's okay. Sorry, my math's.
If each minute is six.
6 intervals of 10 seconds. I got 12 earlier.
You have to do 12 or 10.
12.
Okay, you
12,
said
yeah.
10.
Oh, I'm sorry, 12, so each minute has 10 or 6 10-second intervals.
Yeah.
We're doing
For
2 minute, a
12.
2-minute observation, so that's gonna be 12.
Total,
Sorry,
yeah.
let me clarify that, words, you know? So typically, what we're gonna do here, let me just run you through this data sheet before we move any further. You're gonna wanna have the interval, so again, your interval is gonna be 10 seconds each. Here we have 1-minute intervals, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's gonna be a total duration of 5 minutes. That's what you should also put on yours, a total duration, which would be 120 seconds or 2 minutes. All right. And then the total behavior occurrences, you know, I mentioned earlier, it should be in percentages. So you could do percentages, or you can kind of move back and do however many it occurs. So this one, we have a plus, plus, and plus, so that would be 3 occurrences, right?
So we have the 10, and then what are we putting?
So you're supposed to have 12
Okay, I
there.
have
Yeah.
12, sorry.
12, and then, yep, you got 10 seconds each, so that's perfect. And then you wanna have, yeah, the total duration on there. So the total duration would be 2 minutes, 120 seconds. All right, let me go around. Looks perfect, way to go. Okay, and of course, I got the plus and minuses up here. I'm coming over to check it right now. The pluses and minuses, the pluses are if the behavior occurred for the whole interval, the minuses if it didn't go for the
I
whole
ran out of
interval.
space, so I have my intervals 11 and 12.
Okay, perfect. Oh, I
120
like that
seconds.
for 10 seconds each. That's wonderful. And then don't forget you want to put a place for your total behavior occurrences.
Let me make sure.
Get it? The total behavior occurrences?
Where do you want it, at the end?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, somewhere on there. So again, we're kind of creating our own just so that we are able to generalize when our BCBAs give us our own data sheets, all right? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okie doke. So for this beginning here, I am just gonna go ahead and model an example for you here. Hold on.
Seems like YouTube's gonna model an example.
What is he recording on video?
Uh-oh,
Oh, that's true.
it's not moving over here. Maybe I have to get rid of this.
Exit out of presentation mode.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Here you go.
All right, so just to define my behavior real quick, it's just gonna be standing. We're watching the kid on the left here, whenever it pulls up. Oops. Restart that. And I'm gonna be watching it in 10-second intervals, all right? Can everybody see that pretty well?
Mhm.
Are
Okay,
you gonna let us
perfect.
know when it's 10 seconds?
Yes, I will, but I'm gonna do mine first. So I'm watching the kid on the left. Is he standing the whole time? So I marked a plus because he is standing the whole interval. Again, there was another 10 seconds, still standing. This kid on the left, not the little baby in the diaper. So I marked another plus. There was another interval that he was standing for, so I'm gonna mark a plus again. As you see, he fell there, not standing, so I'm gonna mark a negative, and that was that interval right there. He got up again. There was a whole interval, and he was standing, he was beginning to sit, was still standing though at the end of that interval, so I'm gonna mark a plus. And the last one, he sat down again. Perfect, okay. Or you guys could just watch that video. You can explain it a little bit better than me. Okay, so there I got a plus, 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 negative, plus, negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6. I'll take out my handy dandy calculator that I don't have. Could someone hook me up with the 4 divided by 6? Again,
This
not
is
too good at
66.6 repeating.
math. Is it? Okay.
4 over 6 is 2 over 3.
10,
And he's a
20.
genius.
You're amazing, man.
I've memorized percentages and my basic fractions. All right.
So, there we go. I got a 66% on all of the occurrences there. So, moving forward, we're just gonna be recording, like I said, 2 minutes. The behavior here that we're looking out for, before I move forward, does anybody have any questions on what I just did? Seems pretty straightforward, I hope. Okay, so we all have our data sheets that we wonderfully did so well. I'll let you know when the 10 seconds is up. The behavior we're looking for here is if the person is sweeping or not. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because that was a pretty lax definition. Yes.
Well, in general, and what if it's like a partial, like, for like the kid who is standing, but like, what if they're like crouching?
So again, that's where, you know, accuracy, we're not gonna be 100% accurate every single time. You know, you could have thought, that kid is totally sitting down, but I thought, you know, he's standing up still. In my eyes, at least, the kid was standing the whole 10 seconds. So, I mean, it's kind of gonna vary a little bit. You wanna be as accurate as you can. Like I said, in my eyes, I saw that the kid was standing for that whole 10 seconds. But that's where this can get kind of tricky a little bit. You know, discriminating between, was that the whole interval or was that not? Does that make sense? Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna let you know the 10 seconds. Gotta restart this thing. All right, ready? Okay, perfect. There's the first interval. There's the second interval. There's the third interval. Perfect. There's the fourth interval. So awesome, she wasn't doing anything. There's the fifth interval right there. And there's the sixth. We should be at our halfway point here. And there's the seventh interval. You guys are doing wonderful. The eighth. There's the ninth. And the 10th. The 11th, and you guys should be on your last ones. There is the 12th. All right. So we'll move on back here. It looks like, sorry, there was a lot going on there, but I saw Ian, I think you got every single one right.
Let's do the math for her.
Yep, so we're gonna do the math here in a second, but let's double check, because I was looking at Ian mainly.
This is a really easy one.
Well, it sounds like you're the only one who got it right, so.
Again, it was difficult for me to kind of observe everybody
Everyone?
while walking
Okay.
around, and given intervals, perhaps and that's the tough thing about this as well. When you're out there recording the behavior, you're the one recording those intervals, all right? You're not gonna have me over your shoulder going, interval, interval, interval. Okay, so Ian, good job, you got it all right. Let's double check our answers here. I got positive for the first one, positive for the second, negative for the third, negative for the fourth, negative for the fifth, positive for the sixth, negative for the seventh, positive for the eighth, positive for the ninth, positive for the 10th, then negative for the 11th, and negative for the 12th.
Yes.
Did everybody
Yeah.
get 100%? All
Yes.
right, way to go. You guys are pros
Well, I actually got
already.
50%.
You got 50? Oh,
Ah.
yeah, that's funny. That's funny. So we're gonna calculate.
He goes, that's funny, that's funny.
We're gonna calculate our total occurrences that were happening, and we got, what was that?
50%?
50%, because we got 6 out of 12. Divide that, or multiply that by 100, and we come up with 50%. Did everybody come up with that? Does anybody have any questions moving forward? Okay, perfect. So we'll kind of cap things off here. Just some important notes here. Again, the behavior, if we're doing whole interval recording, the behavior has to occur for the whole interval. All right, thank you, Samantha. Moving on, just like everything else we do, the behavior must be clearly defined and the interval must be clearly defined, all right? If we're not clearly defining that, are we really doing applied behavior analysis? I don't think so. We gotta clearly define those behaviors. We gotta clearly define the interval. Also, moving forward, the whole interval recording, that underestimates the behavior. So like I talked about, if the behavior isn't occurring for that whole interval, we're not gonna count it. So the behavior could be happening 10 times, and we have 10 intervals, but if it doesn't happen for the whole interval, we're gonna get a 0%, all right? Also, you have to be prepped. We did that exercise one time, all right? Out there in the field, you know, sometimes we could get some recordings, typically not. We gotta get like contract signed and whatever. Behaviors happen quick, as we all know. So you gotta be on your toes, you gotta be ready, you gotta have that data sheet ready to go, all right? Like I said, we just did this for generalization purposes, but your BCBA should typically give you your data sheet to record or reuse, of course, the lovely Catalyst, all right? Also, ask questions, all right? I tell this to everybody I'm training. We need to ask questions. If you're unsure on anything, ask your BCBA what's going on. If something's unclear, if the behavior isn't clearly defined, if the interval isn't clearly defined, we need to ask those questions, all right? We need to know what we're looking for. So perfect. With that being said, does anybody have any more questions? I hope that was pretty straightforward to you. You guys are
Very clear.
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was my pleasure. Again, thank you so much, because again, you guys showing up not only helped me academically, but you bettered yourselves as technicians, BCBAs, and overall, that's gonna help out the kiddos. You know, we're doing it all for the kiddos, so you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Win-win-win-win.
That's my reference if you guys want the Cooper book.
Woo,
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Seriously.
I want to